Today we have the pleasure of talking to Te Kaahu. You may also know her as Theia. As Te Kaahu, she has created an album of songs composed in Te Reo Maori and produced by the award-winning Joel Mulholland. Here she is to explain. Thank you for talking to me about your new record, new album, I don't know what you call them these days. What do you call it?
In Reo Maori, we call it a kōpai, which is literally a record.
So, and then it was released on Friday. What was Friday like for you? What happened?
Friday was absolutely incredible. I had so many emotions. My more positive emotions were, of course, like pride, just immense pride, and feeling so supported by my community and by I suppose my whānau as well, and my iwi and whatnot. And then my more solemn emotions were just having a bit of a sense of sadness and loss. Wishing that, or thinking about all of the achievements and the remarkable things that have happened, through, I guess, me just being able to share my language and some, whakapapa and mātauranga knowledge from, my ancestors and from my nannies. The sadness that they're not here tinana, like as in person,
right.
But also the comfort that I've had so many remarkable experiences throughout this process, where I've just known they were there wairua, so in spirit, it's been really amazing.
Yes. Well, that's very exciting. I mean, let's face it, it's a beautifully musical language, so it just makes sense to turn it all into songs anyway. So
agreed.
So what got you to this point where you decided to turn this into a collection of songs?
I suppose I've been composing in Reo Maori since, I was at kura, since I was at school. And would compose, like one very memorable waiata was one that I did for one of my best friends who passed away. And so I kind of felt like, the only way really to communicate that was through waiata, and of course in our language as well. So that was really beautiful. And I guess the reason why I set up Te Kaahu per se is because I have so many compositions that I've written, in my language, and that, bring together much of the knowledge that I've, received from my nannies, and also, just tribal knowledge and metaphorical, kind of language and things like that. And I wanted a way to be able to kind of have them as a taonga, or like a gift, I suppose, to be used as a resource for, other rangatahi Māori, other Māori youths, and then also for my iwi, for my tribe, and whatnot, but not to have them. I just believe that, my mahi as Theia, that's more alt pop, and then also my mahi as Te Kaahu deserve their own mana and their own kind of spiritual power. And so it's only right to not have them really side by side, because of course sonically they're very different, but also aesthetically they're like really different. And then even kaupapa wise, they both of course have this thread of, like, I suppose, like mana wahine, you could say, throughout them, but it's more like, I don't know, I just felt like my mahi, my titonga compositions that were in Tōku Reo Rangatira should have their own kind of space, so that whoever chooses to listen to them can kind of, doesn't have to be confronted with my more political leaning Theia mahi.
Gotcha. So as an artist yourself, and do you feel like you're kind of two sides of a same coin, or do you have to kind of keep in mind who you are and who you're talking to at any particular time?
No, I absolutely feel like, exactly what you've just said, Ehua, where both of these projects are effectively like my right arm and my left arm. Like,
gotcha. Yeah.
They don't feel different to who I am or anything like that. It's more like I acknowledge that they serve different purposes, and it's right that they have their own space, and what's more, of course, one is in Reo Pākehā, like in, a language that nearly everyone can understand, that deals with, topics that are still like quite in your face.
Yep.
But the other one is obviously in Toku Reo Rangatira, my noble language, my chiefly language, and of course my ancestral language. And with the mana of Te Kaahu, I felt like I would never want to utter a single word that was in Reo Pākehā. So the whole idea is to keep it absolutely mana Māori the whole time. And of course there's compositions, like some collabs like I did for Waiata Anthems. I did a song with Kings, which is a bilingual song where I sang the chorus, which is in Reo Māori, and then also the same with my Kazi Vane. The sections that I did are in Reo Māori and her sections are in Reo Pākehā. So those are kind of also the aesthetic and the fact that it's more like an R&B / hip hop genre makes sense that it goes with Theia.
Sure,
but
yeah.
all these compositions, as you can hear, are like very, kind of a mix of like traditional Māori songwriting, like for example, kind of moteatea / karanga, and then also not so traditional, but still extremely meaningful and influential to my people, like more 40s, 50s, 60s vibes.
Right. Well, speaking of the vibe, there's one track, the third track, Rangarara.
Rangirara, yes.
Thank you. It has Rangirara. It sounds very Hawaiian to me because I'm American, so that's kind of where I'm coming from, although I'm from the East Coast. So is that a part of what you're doing as well?
Interesting that you pick up that vibe. Indeed, with the lap steel, it definitely brings kind of like an island Hawaiian Polynesian vibe. The lap steel is, a fond instrument of, our people. It's very nostalgic, beautiful. And Rangirara is a waiata that's about, that's my grandmother's name, Rangirara. And so it kind of is a waiata that honors her and all of the aspects of her name, rangi meaning heavens and rara kind of meaning resting place or beyond. And so it kind of just talks about aspects of her name and some personifications that are like traditional Māori personifications and things. But the production indeed is very much like you could see it as kind of being, again, like having ties to Hawaii and things like that. And my whānau, my kui Rangirara, her mum, Nani Mite, my great-grandmother, was one of the ladies in waiting to our queen Te Rangi Kaahu. And so a lot of that mahi involved her being, accompanying the kingitanga and the queen to her various appointments all throughout Polynesia, and so that's Hawaii and Tahiti and everything like that. And so kind of through that, which obviously was in the past kind of 100 years, a lot of those influences and those instruments came back to Aotearoa as well. So you can kind of, and there's just a natural kind of fusion and inclusion of those instruments, which obviously are very beloved by many of our Polynesian brethren. So
I
it's quite cool.
Yep.
That you noticed that.
Yeah. Now, speaking of production, so Joel Mulholland was involved in the making of most of these songs. So how did the two of you work? Why did you choose to work with him, and what kind of roles did each of you kind of take on?
So I met Jolie last year. We were both part of an arts festival show and brought in by our mutual friend Delaney Davidson. And so we I was one of the, Kai Waiata, one of the performers, and Jolie came along, of course, to play the korg and all of the amazing things that he's really good at. And amongst the kaupapa of the show, the kind of overarching theme was love songs. And so seeing as I just met everyone, but also was kind of brought in to be that face of rangatahi Māori and kind of try and, include some of my culture, I suppose, I decided to put to everyone my Waiata e Hine, which is a love song, obviously about women, and see kind of how everyone would respond. And they loved it so much and decided that they wanted to include it as part of the set. that, of course, came about having to have the bed of the song, which is literally just a G, held like a drone chord the entire way through, but a very specific Maori strum, if you will. And so Joel was one of the guitarists. He picked it up so well, and I was just really impressed with how well he did to pick up the strum that's like very complex and obviously not kind of a familiar thing to most non-Māori as well.
Right.
And so
until I moved to New Zealand, I was completely unaware of it.
Yeah.
You know, and then
exactly.
it's like, oh, okay, I get it. Yeah.
And so, yeah, I kind of, after this particular performance, kept in touch with Joel. You know, he really wanted to kind of start his reo journey and things like that. And of course, I also kind of teach a bunch of lessons to various organizations in the music industry. So anyway, long story short, I sent him the track.
Teach me.
Yeah, come along. I pretty much, long story short, sent him this waiata, told him that it would be really amazing to work with him because of the fact that he's just got such a love for kind of organic instruments rather than being largely synth-based or anything like that, or electronic. That was just really refreshing, and I felt like that's the kind of treatment that this project really deserved. It's like all about kind of bringing the Te Ao Tawhito, the old world, into this, you know, new realm, but through the eyes of a young person, but also thinking about what my nannies would have really loved. And so that, to me, is kind of being more analog and being more organic with the instruments. And anyway, Joel killed it, smashed it. I was very impressed. And so the way that we went forward moving and working together, which was unlike anything that I've done before, and what I really loved, and unlike anything he'd done really before as well, was that because of COVID and the safety constraints, and also because of this kaupapa and like the importance of me feeling like I needed to really take the time and carefully compile, you know, all of the knowledge that I wanted to include into these songs, I pretty much just wrote all of the top lines at home on a basic bed of prod, sent him the top line, sent him some like reference waiata, like some reference songs that perhaps I liked elements of, you know, the production or whatever. And then literally Joel would receive it, come up with a bed of production, send it back to me. He added, like, because I record all my vocals just basic in GarageBand, he added those vocals on top, and voila, you had the basic song. And we kind of would just go back and forth over basic, you know, or final prod elements. And then once we were both happy, I'd just go into the studio at the lab, and we'd spend, you know, about a day and a half on doing all of the vocals, you know, for one song.
Well, I kind of wanted to ask you about the vocals. Yeah, because like you say, you record the vocals at home on GarageBand, but I assume that's not what we're hearing on the final recordings. So when you are when you're in there doing it for posterity's sake, what's going through your head? What kind of feedback are you getting? What kind of environment do you need to, and how do you know when you've got it?
The environment is very important. You know, working at the lab and Joel's studio is so special and kind of like a very beautiful, like a korpu, almost like a womb space, which is really cool. And so with him, I always, you know, karakia and do like a prayer beforehand or an incantation just to make sure that we're both in the same space. Because, you know, I know that however you're feeling can really, like, honestly, the mic picks up on it, you know, and that can be amazing, or it can be like, you know, not good, like, and so I really want to honor, you know, the wider or the spirit of each song. So we always start quite in a meditative space, and then with my mahi that I do at home on GarageBand, because I pretty much write the whole top line, which is, of course, for anyone that doesn't know, it's all of the words and all of the melodies combined. I write that all at home, and then I usually put references for various harmonies that I want to include, or spots. And also I try my best to, you know, have the right tone that I kind of want as well. And so pretty much that just gets brought into studio as almost like, you know, an outline. And then I'll just go over, like, you know, each piece, you know, until I feel like it has the right kind of spirit, because it might be like technically perfect, like the notes are all there, but it just might not, you just might not be able to feel the vibe, or it might be a bit too harsh and needs to be a bit more delicate, things like that. And so it's pretty much just a starting off with the lead all the way through, and then usually I'll have like a high lead, like a high octave, and then I'll add the low octave, and then I'll start adding on the harmonies. And we usually just like, literally just go through, add one at a time all the way through. And then sometimes I add too many because I'm just obsessed with harmonies. And sometimes there's, not enough, and we might need one more on there and whatnot. And then sometimes once you've got all the vocals on there, you're like, okay, so maybe we need to take this bit of prod out because now it's a bit too OTT. And this whole project, as you can hear, is like very much based around the vocals and the kind of textures that you can get through harmonies and through like a lone vocal or through stacks and things like that. So it's really, really cool. And luckily, another reason why I work with Joel and just really, love him is because we've both got a mutual kind of like appreciation / borderline obsession with vocals and harmonies, and that's really rare to find because a lot of producers are just very obsessed with the prod, and that's cool, but it's another thing to have someone who's a really good vocal producer or who just loves the art of doctoring the vocals, making sure that they're all lined up and everything like that. And so that's been really cool with Joel. Yeah.
Excellent. So now the other exciting thing is there's a show that you're doing at Tuning Fork in June. And what's that going to be all about? What can we expect to hear and see when that happens?
I'm very excited about the show. It's a part of Matariki, which is, of course, our Māori New Year. And this is 2022 is the first year that this is being marked, by, I suppose, the governing bodies as an official,
It's a public holiday, right?
Yeah. Really huge. Yeah, it's really amazing. And very, very important, for our people to see that and have that time of year for us, which is all about, farewelling those who've passed away, but also preparing, gathering together as a family and stuff. It's very important for that to be acknowledged. So this show is on that very night on June 24. It's also going to be the first time that my record Te Kaahu O Rangi has been played in full, and we're gonna kind of have more of like a storyteller's vibe where it'll be like a song at a time, and then a little bit of a, explanation of what the various things mean. And it's also a huge full band setup. We're rehearsing really, really hard. I've got up to 8 people on the stage with me, all playing instruments. All of us are Māori. Got some amazing openers as well to be announced. And so the whole kaupapa is really just celebrating and bringing my people together, so that we can kind of just show again and remind everyone the beauty of our language, the beauty and talent of our people. And so of course open to everyone, because I want everyone to be able to access and see this art and this night and stuff. So all welcome, and I'm really excited about it.
Your enthusiasm is infectious. I gotta say, yeah. Which also leads me to think. I realize I think you're making a new Theia album, or you're thinking about that as well. So what's happening there? What can you tell us about it already?
Yeah, you're right about that. I've honestly been working on this record almost at the same time as the Te Kaahu one, and so it's been pretty full on. I about 3/4 of the way through the Te Kaahu record, I stopped working on the Theia one because it deals with some pretty full on things, and it's kind of hard to be in these two worlds or trains of thought at the same time. And so it's kind of been like I'm after the the many commitments that we've been blessed with Te Kaahu on this album drop. I'm gonna return back to Theia so that I can focus on that. And I'm very, very excited. It's also going to be the debut Theia album as well. So two debut albums effectively being worked on at the same time and in the same year. It's quite profound, and they deal with very important kaupapa as well. I'm really looking forward to sharing all of the Theia kind of subject matter and whatnot. I think people will be like confronted, but also encouraged.
Good. Well, I mean, I've been in New Zealand since like 1994, and the reaction to Te Reo is different now than it was then. But there's still some work to be done, isn't there? And there's still some confronting to be done, and among other things as well. So yeah.
Oh, thank you, Eva. Yeah, I'm really I'm really stoked. I hope that through this project, you know, one of the main things was again to provide, like, I guess, inspiration, comfort, and resource for my people, but also to in this way try and, I guess, do what I can in the decolonization of Aotearoa to combat a lot of the systemic racism and oppression that, of course, our people face.
Yep.
Most of that, you know, was through, again, obviously racism, but at the base of that, I think, is just fear and just not quite understanding, or just being, you know, fed and conditioned to think a certain way towards people without understanding, you know, the very specific things that have been put on those people to, you know, result in what's happening today, and or what you're seeing rather. And so, yeah, I hope that through this project, you know, non-Māori can be reminded of the absolute intelligence and vulnerability and sensitivity of our people, and the beauty of our reo as well. And in turn, hopefully that can combat some of the tropes and negative stereotypes and things that, you know, and also not so negative, but still hyper racist tropes that we see, such as strong Māori, angry Māori. Māori. It's like, what about, you know, sensitivity, knowledge of where you come from, all of these amazing things that are just, you know, are hundreds of years old, key things to us as people, and our, very rich history.
Cool. All righty. Well, it sounds like we're gonna have a lot to talk about when the other record comes out. I'm looking forward to that. But in the meantime,
I know, I'm so excited.
We'll see you at the Tuning Fork on the 24th. It'll be quite a night, I imagine. So thank you for talking.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. Well, thank you so much for having me, and it's really, really cool and refreshing to kōrero tahi, like talk together, and especially coming from you know, different backgrounds and even different countries. It's really beautiful. So thank you for your passionate you know, support and inclusion. It's really cool.
My pleasure, believe me. Have a great day. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much. Appreciate it, Marty.
Bye.